notice requirement provided for the open public meeting law has been satisfied. Notice was properly given, said notice having been transmitted to the Courier News and Star Ledger on Wednesday, January 9th, 2019, as well as posting on the bulletin board in the city clerk's office. May I have a roll call?
Council members Armani.
Here.
Davis.
Present.
Good.
Present.
McCray.
Present.
Storch.
Here.
Vice President Hockaday.
Here.
Council President Mills.
Present.
Madam President, we have all members present in a quorum.
Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Humbly we ask God, the giver of peace and the lover of charity, to give the entire family of nations true agreement with his will, to grant the light of his spirit on all those who work for justice and peace. Amen.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of November 12th, 2019?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? There are no communications from the mayor. There is no unfinished business. Consideration of public hearing, second reading and final passage. Mr. Clerk, please read NC 2019-28 by title and further certify that the ordinance has complied with all statutory publication requirements.
Madam President, MC 2019-28 is an ordinance adopting a fifth amended redevelopment plan for the original 197 city-owned and foreclosure and bankrupt properties by removing 28 of the current 78 properties and reverting them to the underlying zone and retaining 50 properties pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law and JSA 12A-1 in its entire sequence. It is hereby certified that notice of the public hearing on this ordinance was published in the Courier News on November 22nd, 2019.
The floor is now open to any member of the public who would like to speak on this ordinance. May I have a motion to close the public hearing of this ordinance?
So be it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? You have a roll call down here. You want a roll
Yes.
call? Okay, roll call. Sorry about that. Okay.
Roll call on MC 2019-28. Council members Armani.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
McCray.
Yes.
Storch.
Yes.
Vice President Hockaday.
Yes.
Council President Mills Ransom.
Yes.
This ordinance has been adopted on second reading and final passage.
Mr. Clerk, please read 2019-29 by title and further certify that that ordinance has complied with all statutory publication requirements.
MC 2019-29 is an ordinance amending Chapter 11, Article 7, Section 11:7-5 of the Municipal Code of the City of Plainfield, New Jersey, 1971, to reflect employee pay increase increments as set forth in the applicable labor agreements. It is hereby certified that notice of the public hearing on this ordinance was published in the Courier News on November 22nd, 2019.
The floor is now open to any member of the public who would like to speak on the ordinance. May I have a motion to close the public hearing on this ordinance?
Seconded.
Roll call, please.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt. Oh, may I have a motion to adopt this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Council members Armani.
Yes.
Davis.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
McCray.
Yes.
Storch.
Yes.
Vice President Hockaday.
Yes.
Council President Mills Ransom.
Yes.
This ordinance has been adopted on second reading and final passage.
Public comments limited to resolutions, motions, and ordinances to be introduced on first reading. A total of 30 minutes has been allocated for public comments limited to resolutions and ordinances being considered this evening. If you wish to be heard, please give your name and address to the clerk for the record. Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. The floor is now open.
Nancy Fever, 1129 Merle Avenue. I want to speak on Resolution R366-17. As most of you are aware, I'm a lifelong resident of Plainfield with some institutional memory. It may be a good thing, it may be a bad thing, but I do have some institutional memory. My question with this ordinance is, has an easement search been done on this property? This is an amalgamated and complicated piece of property, and the city needs due diligence to make sure that the city is aware of all past practices, easements, and/or variances that go along with this piece of property. Parking has always been an issue for Muhlenberg, and Muhlenberg had been a good neighbor for the Board of Education for parking for athletic field events. Parking around Muhlenberg has been a problem throughout the years, and that is why there are resident parking signs only in the area. And at least one resident permit parking was done when the now demolished ER entrance was built, because I was with the resident when she requested that to happen at one of the planning board meetings or Board of Adjustment meetings. I am not against the redevelopment of this property. I just want to make sure the city is protected in the future and has done their due diligence so that there can be no misunderstandings in the future. I respectfully request that a search of easements and/or variances or other written agreements be made. I think the city council should rely on factual documentation and evidence and not on wishful thinking. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no one else come forward to the mic, may I have a motion to close public comments?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Clerk, will you please offer the resolutions?
Resolution R34719 is authorizing the approval of an application for the issuance of a bingo raffle license to St. Mary's Church.
Are there any questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Resolution R34819 authorizing approval for the Plainfield Public School District to hang banners announcing Black History Month.
Are there any questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Resolution R34919 acknowledging the 400th anniversary of the arrival of enslaved people from West Africa.
Are there any questions?
Council President, I have a statement.
Yes, Councilwoman Davis.
I thought it was important to acknowledge the 400th anniversary of the arrival of enslaved Africans to the United States of America. It was 400 years ago that people who looked like me came to this country as cargo with the expectation to work for free and be treated as nothing more than imported machinery. It was only 250 years after that time that the city of Plainfield was chartered. In the early beginnings of the city, I'm sure that no one imagined that 150 years later, the majority of the city's leadership would look like the people they didn't even consider human. We are truly our ancestors' wildest dreams, and in being our ancestors' wildest dreams, it's important that we honor their legacy. It's important that when we show up in the community, and especially the council meetings, that we show up ready to do the work of the people who brought us here, through their votes and their voices. Our presence in the council is not about us as individuals, but instead it's about service. Service to our constituents, but more importantly, service to our community. So when I show up to council meetings, I show up ready to make the best decisions with the information available to me. In order to make those decisions, it is important that we recognize every member of this governing body has the right to ask questions on behalf of the constituents they serve in order to provide them with quality leadership that they deserve. I owe that to my ancestors who came to this country as mere merchandise, to the men and women who sat in places where they were told they didn't belong, to make room for me to sit here in this seat and move the city forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Davis.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Resolution R 35019, conveying condolences to the family of Alejandra Johnson.
Are there any questions or comments?
Just a comment that the parents, I don't see them here tonight, Tom Johnson and Lee Keogh, and I just want to comment on the sad passing of their daughter, Alexandra Irina Johnson, who, among other things, served as a volunteer for the rescue squad. And this is a family that's been really good citizens, wonderful addition to our community, and I wish them condolences and the best.
Thank you, Councilman Storch. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstaining?
Resolution R 35119, conveying thanks and sincere best wishes to our colleague, Mr. Corey Storch, concluding his service as Plainfield's 2nd Ward Councilman.
Okay. Yes, we'll come down. Come on, we gotta move.
Yes, ma'am.
Wish you could sign. City of Plainfield, New Jersey, Plainfield Municipal Council hereby issues this resolution conveying thanks and sincere best wishes to our colleague, Mr. Corey Storch, concluding his service as Plainfield's 2nd Ward Councilman, introduced by unanimous City Council. Whereas Corey Storch, a lifelong resident of the City of Plainfield, has completed 15 years of distinguished service as councilman representing the 2nd Ward, and whereas Corey Storch, throughout his term as councilman, further distinguished himself as the 2016 City Council President, appointed as the council designee to the planning board for multiple years, and contributed to the City Council's participation in multiple committees and subcommittees. And whereas Corey Storch, in recognition of the many forward movements of his beloved City of Plainfield during highly demanding times, sought to crystallize and solidify the governing body's resolve to proceed with unity for the greater common advantage of this fair city. And whereas elected to the governing body in 2003, Corey Storch was fondly known for his calm temperament and rational demeanor. He provided leadership, experience, and mentorship to his many colleagues throughout his tenure on the governing body. Now be it resolved by the Municipal Council of the City of Plainfield that Corey Storch's distinguished years on the Plainfield City Council be commemorated and memorialized, and be it further resolved that this governing body, on behalf of the entire citizenry of this great city, spread upon its permanent records most sincere admiration and best wishes for happiness to our friend Corey Storch for the years ahead, adopted by the unanimous Municipal Council of the City of Plainfield. Thank you.
I just want to say a few words. There's way too many people to thank, but there's a few that I must thank. Above all, I have to thank my wife, Lois Matson, who was in this, what we used to call it a fight. I don't think it's a fight anymore. I think it's, I think the city is working much better, much more cohesively, with some disagreements, but I think there's more unity than there has been for a long, long time. And we've been in this since the beginning of what we call the New Democrats, even before that. And I want to give credit and thanks to now deceased Mayor Al McWilliams, who recruited Lois and I to this. Lois was his campaign manager when he got elected mayor. And back then, the people who were recruited by Al include some people that are serving Plainfield very well today. And I want to start with Adrian Mapp. I think this city, we've had to fight hard to get to a place where we have the city and the county and the state governments working together. And that requires leadership. And Adrian's provided that leadership. That's one of the reasons, as I step away from this, I try to look back at what I've been able to accomplish. I think more than anything, I've been fortunate enough to support good leadership, and I want to thank you, Adrian. So, Adrian, we don't agree on everything, but I think we need more sustained progress in Plainfield, and I look forward to the city council continuing to work cohesively, because I think the council is doing that. And I think we would do well to support Adrian when he comes up for election in 2 years, to make that plug. We need that kind of progress. We need sustained progress. I also believe that one thing that's been lacking in Plainfield for quite a period of time is good succession planning for leadership. Leadership is really what's been the missing ingredient up until now. And because of our success, the opportunity is going to come to our current leaders. Members of the council and the mayor are going to have other opportunities, and they deserve those opportunities. But it means we need to be prepared. We need to have the future leaders getting ready to take over for when people move up to higher office. And I certainly can envision that happening. So I feel really good about stepping down because I think we're moving in the right direction. And I want to thank all of my colleagues for all of your support. And I want to say thanks to all the citizens who come out to these meetings, whether you agree with everything we do or not. It's important to hear from you. So let's keep the progress going in Plainfield, and thank you.
Remain because the Honorable Mayor Adrian Mapp would like to speak to you.
Well, Councilor Storch, I want to say to you how much I personally appreciate the enormity of your contribution to the city of Plainfield. You have been at this since 2003 when Al McWilliams and others decided that it was time for Plainfield to move away from the politics of division to the politics of inclusion and cohesiveness. And I always say that there can be unity without uniformity. And you and I, sometimes we had our policy differences, but I must say that you have been one council person who has been very, very supportive of good governance. And I know that policy is something that's important to you. And we could not have made the progress that we've made over the years. And I personally could not be successful as the mayor of this city without your support. You have been there each and every step of the way. And in spite of whatever minor differences we might have had on the policy, on the politics, when we look at the picture as a whole, the bigger picture, the enormity of your contribution is something that no one can argue with. And our city is in a much better place as a result of your contribution, as a result of your leadership. And I know that you have always wanted to do your absolute best. And everything that you've done, you did it from the heart, you did it from a place where you felt was the best for the city of Plainfield. And so we're gonna miss you on this governing body. You kept us straight, you kept us focus on doing what's right for the city of Plainfield. And I can't thank you and your family, Louis, enough for what you have done for the city and the contribution that you've made. So we thank you, and I take my hat off to you.
Thanks for the kind words, and I know Lois and I are talking about, like, what do we do next? But we definitely are gonna stay involved in Plainfield. It's, you know, I wasn't born here, but it feels like home to me. I've lived here longer than I've lived anywhere, and I love this city.
Okay, clerk?
You need a motion and a second for that resolution. You need a motion and a
Yes.
second for that resolution.
I don't know if we can do that. No, all right. Can I have a motion, please, to accept resolution 35119, conveying our thanks and best wishes to our colleague, Councilman Storch.
So,
Second.
Moved and properly second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, Corey.
Resolution R35219, approving and authorizing the execution of a renewal of a memorandum between the City of Plainfield and the Board of Education.
Are there any questions?
Yes. So I'm glad that we'll continue this memorandum of understanding with the Plainfield School District, and we can continue the relationship that we have with them now, because when one of us wins, we all win. My only concern is that the memorandum is renewed for an indefinite term. Is it any way that we can have it revisited by both parties every few years or so, because we never know how leadership might change on either side, and just so we don't want it to not be a problem and then one day it become a problem. So if we could just have language that maybe every 3 years or every 4 years, we just look at it, even if we don't change anything. So that way it's not just sitting on a shelf until one day there's new leadership and now there's a problem or something, or they didn't know about it.
Thanks for that comment, Councilor. The reason why we are recommending that this be done for an indefinite period of time, quite frankly, we don't see the need for us to be back here every year, every 2 years, every 3 years, to rehash this or to go over this, periodically. And I should point out that in the resolution, because some might have some concerns, but in the resolution, there is a clause, a 60 or 90-day clause, I don't remember the exact number of days, that either party can, decide at any point in time what they want to do. But this is a resolution that speaks to the partnership that ought to exist without any questions. And I say that because of the amount of the contribution that the city of Plainfield makes to the Board of Education. And I know that a number of you may be aware of the school resource officers that provide services to the district on a daily basis. You may or may not know that the school vehicles fill up at our pump every day at a significantly reduced cost to the district. You may or may not know that the district doesn't pay permit fees and things of that sort. And we believe that that makes a lot of sense. Now, on the other hand, this city, this administration, and this council, we use school facilities from time to time, periodically, to maybe have a sporting event, or maybe have a council meeting, as we do from time to time in the different wards. The master plan meetings, as we just concluded. And the school district, the facilities are assets that the municipality ought to be able to use in an unfettered way. And so I think that it should not matter who the elected officials are at any given point in time. What should matter is that these are two governmental entities, and one should not have to pay the other for services that are periodically offered. And so I don't believe there's a need to revisit this every 2 years, every 3 years. I think that it should be indefinite because the relationship will be indefinite. The need of both parties will be indefinite. And I firmly believe that if any governing body, any administration, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, feel a need to not do this, and it would be unwise, that it had the opportunity to bring that forward. But to have to vote on this every 2 or 3 years, I don't believe makes sense, quite frankly. And that is why, in meeting with the superintendent, after she came, at the direction of members of the board to have some questions answered, we were very forthcoming, very transparent in how we feel about the relationship, how we feel about the need for this MOU. And so the administration stands by its position and would recommend that we not put a limit on this, relationship in terms of this MOU.
Council President, if I may.
Yes, Councilwoman.
I completely agree with everything that the mayor said about this being a partnership and the importance of the relationship and how we both need each other. But to say that it doesn't make sense, we put on some resolutions every single year. So what is it to put on one more resolution every single year? I think that we should absolutely revisit it. Because we never know, we may want to change something, we may want to add something, we may want to take away something. It's a very general memorandum of understanding right now, but things may change over the course of time. And even, for example, even with my sorority, we have a memorandum of understanding with other chapters, and every 2 years we revisit that. Nothing changes, but we still have to revisit it every 2 years just in case. So I think it's just good oversight and good transparency to just revisit it periodically. It doesn't have to be every year, it doesn't have to be every 2 years, it could be every 10 years, but just periodically revisit it just to make sure that we're all still on the same page. Thank you.
Question, is there anything in this agreement that precludes either side from asking to come back to the table and make changes?
No, Councilman Storch, no, there is nothing. First of all, the agreement could be amended at any time if the parties so desire. But as the mayor stated, there's an opt-out provision. At any time, if either party feels that the agreement's not in their best interest or doesn't want to take part anymore, they can simply terminate the agreement.
Thank you.
That's their right. Yeah.
And let me add, there are members on the Board of Education that would not like to see this at all, that would not like to do this. And I'm sitting here as mayor of this city, and I'm telling you, that would be a grave mistake. I mean, a grave mistake.
Any other questions or concerns?
I'd just like to note, it does say in the memorandum, either party can terminate 90 days that it gives it, so it's for the benefit of the public.
Make a motion that we pass this amendment.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Resolution R35319, authorizing a 2-month renewal of a contract with Aetna and the difference card.
Are there any questions? Do we have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Any abstentions?
Resolution R35419, authorizing approval to amend the calendar year 2019 municipal budget.
Are there any questions? Do Do we have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention.
Resolution R35519, authorizing transfers between calendar year 2019 appropriations of the general fund.
Are there any questions?
Yes.
Councilwoman Davis?
If we can just have an explanation. So two things. If I'm reading it correctly, are we taking money from senior services and salary and wages?
Yes.
Can we just have an explanation of why we're taking money from senior services as well as workers' comp?
We didn't spend all of the money, so there was available funds that won't be spent by the end of the year. So that's the reason that they became a source of funds that were needed in other groups.
Also, between last month and this month, we've transferred $10,500 to medias and communications for salary and wages. Can we just have an explanation on why that much was transferred, as well as the municipal court for $28,500 and information and technology for $15,000 in operating expenses?
What was the last one?
Information and technology.
All right, I'll do that one last. Information technology has some bills associated with the technology that we use that need to be paid, so we had to, provide some additional funding to cover that. With regard to the municipal court, the biggest change is the change in the bail bond, law. And so that's required a lot of additional overtime, and interpreting services. So that's why you see the transfers for the municipal court. And with regard to media, the city's doing a lot more events than it has in the past. So what you're seeing is, when the employees all come out, they're due overtime. So that's the reason you're seeing the transfers there.
Thank you. So in looking towards next year's budget, are we going to change the numbers to reflect these budget transfers, or?
That's the mission of the budget process. Everyone has been asked to true things up to what they expect are going to be their realistic expenses for 2020.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Resolution R35619, authorizing the advertisement of bids to purchase certain properties owned by the city of Plainfield.
Are there any questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Abstention.
Resolution 35719, authorizing free metered parking for the holidays.
Are there any questions?
Yes. Has the administration given thought to expanding the free metered parking? Holiday shopping now begins a lot earlier than it has in the past. So has there been any thought to maybe making that time longer?
It's a revenue generator. The shorter the period, it's really tied to what I would call the Christmas time, the 2 weeks, as opposed to the shopping time. So to move it up and cut out probably another month of revenue, we'd have to find another source of revenue. So you're talking tens of thousands of dollars that we probably would lose to expand it.
So to counter that, our businesses may get more business if it's like, oh, it's free parking downtown. I'm more willing to stop because I don't have to search for a quarter in my bag or in my car to put in the meter. So I think the contrary to that is, while we may lose $10,000 in revenue, our businesses may gain $10,000 in revenue, and we could just find it somewhere else in the budget.
So noticed.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Resolution 35819, amending the contract to Launcher Construction Corp.
Are there any questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved, Council President.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Resolution 35919, authorizing approval to utilize the Morris County Co-op for concrete replacement.
Are there any questions? Do we have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposing? Any abstaining?
Resolution 36019, authorizing the city of Plainfield to enter into an agreement with NJ Transit.
Are there any questions?
Yes. In the letter from New Jersey Transit, it references moving parking to parking on the south side or the south lot. Can you just kind of explain where that new parking would go?
Good question, yes. Lot 6 across the street. We're looking to take 14 spaces from where we are at Transit and move across the street. That's the agreement we have with them. Move 14 spaces from there to Lot 6.
Is that the lot where Bills and all of that is back there?
What is it, John?
Okay.
So, I have another question. So, it says in the letter that this isn't actually a contract, but more like a preliminary outline of what they're agreeing to. So when a contract is created, is that gonna come back before the council?
Everything will come back before the council, even ordinance as we move bus stops, etc. Yes.
Okay, and my concern with the pedestrian mall, which I've been very vocal about in the past, is still parking in that area being an issue. And, even when we went to the ribbon cutting for the SID, we had council members illegally parking because they couldn't find a space. And so my concern with having that pedestrian mall there is the parking for the residents who live in that area who are already having trouble finding parking spaces now. The commuters who are looking for parking, the business owners, and just removing however many parking spaces are in that whole area. And I've been very vocal about being against the whole pedestrian mall, but I think if it was maybe a portion of that, it might be a little bit better for the residents, but parking in that general area on either side of the train station is very problematic for the people that live over there. And as we look to increase density in that area, I think it's something that we need to remain cognizant of, that people have cars, and while we want to make this transit oriented, people are going to still come with their cars because it's New Jersey and we love to drive, to just ensure that parking isn't a problem or becomes something that prevents people from wanting to come to Plainfield despite a pedestrian mall, despite all the good things that we have going on. Thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstain, any opposition? Any abstaining?
Resolution 36119, authorizing approval for a street opening permit for Grant Avenue.
Are there any questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposing? Any abstaining?
Resolution 36219, authorizing approval for a street opening permit for 313 Manson Place.
Are there any questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposing? Any abstaining?
Resolution 36319, authorizing the approval to hang banners for the announcement of seasonal program and events for the Recreation Division.
Are there any questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Resolution 36419, authorizing approval to submit a grant application for the implementation of the 2020 Plainfield Municipal Alliance programs.
Are there any questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Resolution 36519, directing the planning board to conduct an investigation for Waynewood Park and Lafayette Place for the preparation of a redevelopment plan.
Are there any questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Resolution 36619, designating certain properties as non-condemnation redevelopment areas.
Are there any questions?
Yes. Does the city have a plan for this area?
The first step in the process is see if the property or the area meets the in need of redevelopment criteria. So this is the first step. And we are putting together assuming that this gets adopted, we're putting together a redevelopment plan to be presented to the planning board. And then if the planning board recommends that, then we'll bring it back to council for introduction in January.
My second question is, why is just this one piece of land being, we're looking to deem an area in need of redevelopment? Usually we have multiple parcels of land.
It probably should have been included when we looked at the former Muhlenberg Hospital property, but we are looking at it this time. It is close to that area in need of redevelopment, and as we look at that area, that is a property that meets the blight criteria. And so that's why we're looking at it now. It's an opportunity to really complete out the Muhlenberg campus.
Okay, so this resolution is designating that property an area in need of redevelopment. We're not looking to study it, right? Because it's already been studied.
It's been studied. The planning board reviewed the study and had a public hearing on the study, and they're recommending that it meets the criteria associated with an area in need of redevelopment.
Okay, so just a few more questions. Ms. Pewar came up and asked about the variances and everything. Has that been looked at?
We do not, in this, for clarification, this resolution only is determining whether the property meets the blight criteria under the state statute. Easements are generally looked at when someone presents a site plan before the planning board. And so that's when we take a look at easements, variances, so you have to have a plan, a redevelopment plan, in order to get variances from the plan. And so what we are doing today is only saying that it meets the area in need of criteria. The planning board will deal with parking as part of the redevelopment plan. They also get an opportunity to look at parking, easements, and variances when a site plan is presented, site plan application is made before the board. So that's the opportunity when those things come into play. Easements is something that is not looked at as part of the redevelopment process.
Okay, Councilwoman Dennis?
No, I think I just have one more question. So usually when areas are designated areas in need of redevelopment, it gives the municipality more latitude to really talk with developers about what it is that they want to see in the area. And I'm just a little concerned because do we have a plan of what we want to see in that area? I think that's really my concern.
We have some thoughts about what we want to see in that area in terms of development, which would be consistent with the current plans for Muhlenberg and that particular area. So this property basically wouldn't be treated any differently. So there would be an opportunity for some retail, but associated with medical, some opportunity for housing. Those are the kinds of things that we will be looking at associated with this parcel, which makes sense with what's going on in the area.
Any other questions or concerns? Do we have a motion?
So be it.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstaining?
And Resolution 36719, recognizing December 1st, 2019 as World AIDS Day.
Are there any questions? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? New items, there are none. Introduction of ordinances on first reading, none. We're now at the point of general comments. A total of 60 minutes has been allocated for all the public comments to be presented. If you wish to be heard, please give your name and address to the clerk for the record. The amount of time any single speaker is allowed will be limited to 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Just a minute, let me open the floor.
John E. Pritchard,
John.
formerly of 720.
Hey, just 1 second, let me open the floor. Okay, the floor is now open.
Okay. John E. Pritchard, formerly of 723 Arlington Avenue, Plainfield, New Jersey, now 410 Spruce Avenue, Garwood. Two things I'd like to address the council on. The holidays are upon us right now, and we're thinking about those who are serving our country as soldiers, sailors, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and airmen, both at home and abroad. We need to back our men as they defend our freedom. We failed to do so during the war in Vietnam. We lost 16 men from Plainfield during that war. When those who came back after their tours, they were called Nazis, murderers, baby killers. I'd like to see that word Nazi retired once and for all. It's that other N-word that I don't like to hear. It's just as bad as the other N-word, which of course I will not use. The poor brave soldier in there despise. Don't count him as a stranger. Remember, he's his country's stay and day in our danger. And secondly, we need to reopen the hospital in Plainfield. We need a hospital that could serve our citizens of Plainfield and the surrounding areas. We need that hospital, we need it very badly, and we need it ASAP. We need to reactivate Muhlenberg, because what if the 9/11 attack occurs? We'll need that hospital and many others very, very badly. The sooner we reactivate Muhlenberg, the better off we all would be. Do I make myself clear?
Timothy Priano, 1405 Martine. I want to thank Corey personally because, you know, he was the first one who approached me, so you can blame it on him. But I do want to say something. We had a great lighting downtown with the SID, or the whatever it's called. Not SID. But we're still lacking on lights downtown. We have so many lights. I get up at 5:30, 6 o'clock to go to the gym. Half of downtown is dark. Our street lights are out everywhere. There's gotta be some way to talk to PSE&G to get this fixed. It's crazy. They hung all the beautiful Christmas lights. Half of them don't work because they hung them on street lights, poles that don't have electricity, but they're supposed to have electricity. We could make so much better if we just raised just a little to get PSE&G to help us. Because this is crazy. I mean, there's dark corners. When you turn into the back lot off of Watchung, you cannot see where the driveway is. You have to go, you know, careful because the pavement is a narrow opening right next to Punta, whatever, I can't think of which one it is. But that little, which one? Punta Peruana. Because the other side over by Supremos is closed at 5:30, 6 in the morning. The gates are down, so you can only enter one way. But there's no lights on the street. The whole side of the street is just so dark. And it's just like, these are people walking to the trains in the morning, in the buses, and it's pitch dark out there. So it's just one little thing. Can we just get PSE&G? We can all go on strike and not pay the bill. Will that help? Thank you.
That's within our initiative, right? Light up the city.
Absolutely, we're looking to address solar lights. We took a ride during the evening too to check lights on myself and Director Burgess, so we're really aggressively trying to address this with public service and as well as any lights that belong to the city. Plainfield.
Mr. President, I'd just like to direct Mr. Dabney and Director Bridges to make it a project to go around our city and identify the poles that are missing lights. Because we've heard this complaint over and over again. And I believe there's a very simple solution. The poles with, not just with lights, but every pole has a number that identifies the pole. And so let's take those numbers off those poles, and we're all aware of the Light Up the City initiative where I want to see light where there's darkness. So that speaks to neighborhoods where there wasn't light. But when we know there was light and bulbs are out, we need to make sure we have those bulbs replaced. Not only are we going to replace those bulbs, but they need to be replaced with LEDs. So I want us to make this a project because of the plethora of complaints that we have gotten. I know there are some lights that the city indicated, some poles, the black poles that are on by the city where there's no electrical socket to plug like fixture in. And so that is another issue. That's not the issue of a pole not having lights. So first I want us to tackle the poles where the lights are out, as well as the poles where we need to have additional lights put in place.
Council President, I have a question.
Yes.
So are the street lights on timers? So are they on timers or time increments? Like they come on at a certain time? Are they only on for a certain length of time, then they go off, then they come back on?
Dusk to dawn.
But they should be on the whole time from dusk to dawn?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
People 1129 Merlin. If you need help, I don't have any problem with PSNG at the Drake House. I just call them up and they're out there in 24 hours.
The problem is not PSNG.
Right.
We need to own it.
Right.
And so that's why I'm directing two department heads to make sure that we take this on in
Right.
a very serious way and place all of the resources necessary to fix this problem.
No, I agree with you. That's why I have the poll numbers listed, and the minute they go off, I'm right on it. I'm on the same page with you, Mayor. I want to also thank Corey Storch for his service to the city of Plainfield. I also want to thank Councilwoman Davis for our 349-19. As all of you know, the Drake House had slaves, and we talk about it every time somebody comes in. It's been difficult with descendants sometimes. A lot of healing goes on in a museum. A lot of people don't think of a museum as a healing place, but they have to come to grips with the fact that their descendants owned slaves. I've had a number of conversations with a variety of people that lived in this area that had to deal with 5 generations later that their family owned slaves, and it's a conversation that we have all the time at the Drake House, just so you know. I'm also currently working on a separate project myself, trying to do a census, going through all wills, colonial wills, and making a census of names so that people have an identity. Even if they don't have a last name, they have an identity. I also, and I talked to the mayor, planning board, Board of Adjustment about this. I'm working with a descendant now from North Plainfield who owned the property. His family owned the property where the Blue Hills Militia Post was. And we've gathered together a group of scholars, historians, and local residents that are interested in discovering the fort because we're going to be celebrating the 250th anniversary of New Jersey and the United States, and that fort played a very important role. And at some point, the group will probably ask permission to come before the City Council to present our findings. It's an exciting endeavor because we're going to also bring the children in, and we're also going to recognize the slaves that also served in that fort and helped the troops, and also served as spies. I do a talk about the contributions of colonial African Americans to America, and people don't realize that a lot of the slaves served as spies, and they had a network, and they helped. And in fact, I just recently uncovered a story down in Trenton. We're going to celebrate the crossing of the Delaware River, and when an informant got to the door where the Hessian general was, he gave direct orders not to be disturbed, and so the African Americans shut the door, and because of him, we now have the United States of America.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Maher Janadri, 200 Court Place, the owner of Queen City Coffee Roasters. I've had the privilege of meeting most of you already over the last couple of months as we've opened up our coffee shop just right across the street. Now, as the year is ending and all of the parking construction is coming to an end behind the courthouse and police station, I would recommend to the council to reevaluate parking on Court Place. I know there's a lot of right now designated police parking on the left side, but it's a really good opportunity now that there's a lot more spots to add meter parking there. It'd be great for business. I know I get it all the time from customers that people can't come in just because they can't find parking in this area. So just a suggestion. Thank you.
Just a response to that, Council President. I've heard over the years that the sign of success is bringing Starbucks to Plainfield. Well, we're doing better than that. We have two coffee houses that are better than Starbucks, and we better support their parking needs.
Okay, I did see Director Burgess taking notes. So.
No pressure.
All right, seeing no one else approach the mic, may I have a motion to close?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh,
So
Mayor,
be
you want to say something?
Before you adjourn.
Okay.
Just to, quick thing, just a follow-up to the lighting situation. If my administrative team is experiencing any issues after we communicate with BSNG, I just need to know that so that we can expedite the process. Number two, you adopted a resolution earlier this evening expressing condolences to the family of a deceased young lady. And there was a time when the council had adopted like a blanket resolution where if there's a need for a resolution of condolence, you wouldn't have to wait for the next council meeting, but such a resolution could be issued in light of the fact that deaths occur at any time. So I was just wondering if that is still in place.
Okay. Could you repeat that again? Because I just so many words.
So there was I think it used to be adopted at the beginning of the year during a reorganization, where the council would adopt a resolution indicating that if there's a need for a resolution expressing sympathy to a family of a deceased person, that you didn't have to wait for a council meeting to have that resolution authored by, let's say, the clerk, expressing condolence to a family at that time. That event might occur at January the 14th. The next council meeting isn't until February. So I think that something like that ought to be.
Well, I think that, and the clerk can make clarity if I'm incorrect. We have reserved resolutions for specific instances or deaths. We have dealt with a letter of condolence, which can be done at any time. So that is what we are doing to your request today. To me?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. And am I correct or am I
Probably about 6-7 years ago, there were rules of order that were adopted by the council in the beginning of the year. And that verbiage was a part of the rules of order. Subsequently, we codify the rules of order into the code book, and that wasn't one of the things that made it. So if that is what the council decides to do moving forward, that would have to be put into the ordinance. And I think that's what the mayor's recommending be done moving forward.
So just to clarify, would that be indefinite if it was codified?
It would be until the council amended it.
Okay.
But in the past, several years ago, if someone were to pass away and the council person were to ask for a resolution, that wouldn't have to be something that came before the council to be adopted. It would just be, the request would just be made, it would be created by the clerk, and then it would just be memorialized at the next meeting.
Okay.
So, are you saying that we are doing that now?
No, I'm saying that was something that was, it was in the rules of order that the council had adopted in the beginning of the year. We did away with the rules of order, and now we codified most of the things in the code book, and that wasn't one of the things that made it. So if the council wanted to do that moving forward, they would have to adopt an ordinance allowing the clerk to create a resolution in advance of the meetings.
Okay, so we've been doing things correct, so we have to discuss this, and, any other thing the administration would like to bring up to us, you can, you can call me. Okay,
Thank you, Council President. That wasn't the point, though.
But I'm trying to get the point, really, that's why I'm going that way, I'm just trying to hang with you and get the point here.
Council President.
Yes.
Just to follow up on this discussion, I think the council should also consider using the same rule that's being proposed for resolutions honoring people, not just for condolences. I think that's the way the General Assembly and the State Senate do it. So, individual council members can do that whenever they need to.
One thing, Mr. Clerk, we're just due for some discussion on this at some other time. Could you put it on an agenda? Because we're not gonna solve this tonight. Okay.
Just food for thought, since I'm not going to be here at the next meeting.
Sorry? I will call you and get you on the phone so you can help me. Okay. You have one? I know we never closed the floor because the mayor asked to say something, so now we were just all been going. Thank you, Councilman Good, though. That's exactly what I was getting ready to do. Okay. Okay. All right. Seeing no one else comes to the mic. I did say that part. You like a motion to close the floor?
So moved, Council President.
A second? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Now, I would, are you trying to say something?
Yes, before we adjourn, I sent an email to the council, but I just wanted to let the council know that, Pastor Hart at Freedom Ministries did present a plaque to the council.
That's true, yeah.
It is in my car, so if somebody wants to, do we give it to the clerk? Do I keep it? Whatever we do with it, it's in my car. But I did want to let the council know and the public know that Pastor Hart of Freedom Ministries did present the Plainfield Municipal Council with a plaque, thanking them for being a partner with him in the work that he does with Freedom Ministries.
Thank you. I do remember we had that conversation and I thought he was coming, but the snow stopped that and then, okay. All right. I have a few more minutes. Anybody else has something? Okay. All jokes aside, I have a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?